Thank you for joining the public meeting to discuss the Fischer-Hallman Transit Priority Study. We're here to walk you through the background, purpose, and benefits of the study. My name is Pat Morabito, the Manager of Communications and Engagement for Transportation at the Region of Waterloo, and I'll be your host this evening. The Region of Waterloo is situated on the lands within the Haldimand Treaty of 1784, a formally ratified agreement acknowledging 6 miles on either side of the Grand River as treaty territory belonging to 6 nations of the Grand River. The Region of Waterloo serves as an area within the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe, the Chinootan, and the Haudenosaunee peoples. This territory is within the lands protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum. We acknowledge the enduring presence, knowledge, and philosophies of Indigenous people. We acknowledge the continuing accomplishments and contributions Indigenous peoples make in shaping Waterloo Region. Today, we're going to go through some of the technical details of the Fischer-Hallman Transit Priority Study. Some of this can be quite technical, but there will be time for questions at the end. I'd like to introduce you to today's panelists. First, from the Region of Waterloo, we have Natalie Wennick, Project Manager, Jeffrey Keyworth, Acting Manager of Transportation Planning, and Howard Chang, Supervisor of Transit Development. And from our Arcadis team, we have Margaret Parkhill, Project Manager, and Trevor Jenkins, Mobility Preliminary Design and Environmental Assessment. Let's begin. Natalie, over to you.
Thanks, Pat. During tonight's presentation, we will provide an overview of the study. This includes information on the study area and the region's policy and planning framework, why Fischer-Hallman Road is being studied, explain what transit priority measures are and how they can benefit the region, explore the constraints and considerations for the study area, explore how well the corridor operates for different ways of getting around today, and finally present the study schedule and next steps. We'll then take questions from attendees. You can enter your questions in the Q&A box of Zoom, as Pat mentioned. You'll see prompts throughout the presentation, like the one shown in the top right corner right now. These are meant to help provide additional context for new ideas, to spark reflection, and to encourage feedback on these areas. The study area is shown on the map on the right side, highlighted in yellow. It includes Fischer-Hallman Road and Barringer Road, from New Dundee Road in Kitchener to the south, all the way to Westmount Road in Waterloo to the north. The study focuses on improving travel options for all road users along the corridor, whether on foot, bike, bus, or private automobile. The study proposes to implement transit priority measures that will improve travel time and reliability for people riding buses and implement better facilities for people walking and biking. The study area is an important transit corridor with 4 GRT routes running along it and another 12 that cross the corridor. The corridor also connects several residential and commercial areas and a growing community in the Huron Road area to the south. Most intersections have traffic lights. However, roundabouts have recently been constructed to the south of the corridor. Waterloo Region has changed, and it's continuing to change. Over the past decade, the region has grown by nearly 20% and was home to over 587,000 residents in 2021. By 2051, the region is expected to be home to over 923,000 residents. Providing efficient and sustainable ways to get around will be essential to keep everyone moving in our region. The region is also growing economically. Waterloo consistently achieves annual GDP growth greater than 2%, which is projected to be within the top 5 metropolitan areas in Canada. Various factors, including the construction of iron light rail transit, increased business investment, and population growth, support the region's growth. Grand River Transit is also being used more than ever. In 2023, the system set a new ridership record with more than 26 million trips. Transit ridership is likely to continue to grow over the next 5 years. GRT's busiest bus route, Route 201, travels along most of this corridor. Route 201 currently averages 12,000 boardings per day. That's around 10% of the system's daily boardings. Further investment in transit will be essential to provide efficient and sustainable ways for existing and future residents to keep the region moving. Waterloo Region's existing policies support expanding transit options, such as more walking, biking, and public transit for its residents and workers. These policies include the strategic plan, which prioritizes housing, growing sustainably, providing equitable services and opportunities for all, and providing services to support residents better. Also, the region's official plan, which is a blueprint for land use planning. The official plan sets a vision for an inclusive, thriving, sustainable community for current and future generations. The Transportation Master Plan aims to provide viable transportation choices for people of all ages and all abilities to create sustainable and healthy communities. And finally, the Climate Action Strategy, called Transform WR, provides a path to reduce local greenhouse gas emissions by 80% by 2050. Transportation accounts for 49% of local emissions, so providing sustainable travel options will play a vital role in achieving this 80 by 50 goal. With the region growing, expanding transit will be important to keep people and goods moving reliably and efficiently. If nothing is done to support transit today, transit trip times will get longer, which means transit operating costs are going to have to increase, as buses will travel slower and more buses will be required to provide future service. Residents and workers who use transit will experience longer and less reliable transit trips, and a lack of practical alternatives to the automobile will make it harder to connect people and jobs and harder to move goods, negatively affecting our local economy. The region's Transportation Master Plan identifies Fischer-Hallman Road as an important north-south connection between Kitchener and Waterloo, which plays a significant role in how people get around. The Transportation Master Plan identifies the need to implement transit priority measures along the corridor. This will expand the mobility options available to residents to support the growing region in an equitable and sustainable manner. The study works to implement the Transportation Master Plan's vision by prioritizing transit on Fischer-Hallman Road to maximize the benefit of transit investment. This will benefit residents and workers from across the region who live, work, or travel along the corridor. Reducing delays for transit vehicles and reducing travel times amid growing travel demands. Promoting transit, walking, and cycling along the corridor to give current and future residents travel options for getting around. Enhancing active transportation facilities for walking and cycling to improve access to transit and make it easier to make short trips. Reducing transportation-related emissions help support the region's emission reduction targets, and coordinating the planning of transit priority measures with planned replacement of various bridges and structures along the corridor. This will reduce impacts during construction. When thinking of Fischer-Hallman Road, which of these improvements are important to you? The purpose of this study is summarized on this slide and draws from the region's policies, plans, and other best practices. The key purposes of this study are to create a safer, more efficient multimodal transportation system that enhances transit ridership and promotes sustainability, identifies both short-term improvements and long-term visions for our corridor, and support the region's planning, environmental, and land use objectives. We'd like to know, what do you think of this study's stated purpose? We'd love to hear that feedback in the survey online. So, what are transit priority measures? Transit priority measures aim to improve transit users' speed, reliability, and experience. Transit priority measures include a variety of improvements. The three types are, first, regulatory measures, which are transit priority measures that can be applied through existing legislation and regulations, typically through signage and/or pavement markings. Second, transit signal priority, which uses signal technology to prioritize public transit vehicles at traffic signals to improve their travel time and reliability. This system helps reduce delays for transit riders, making public transportation a more attractive option. And thirdly, physical measures, which include continuous and/or localized changes to road geometry. Continuous measures are implemented at multiple intersections or road segments, while localized measures only exist at one location. These measures include dedicated transit lanes, queue jump lanes, and reserved lanes. Examples of each type of transit priority measure can currently be found in Region of Waterloo. These include earn exemptions for transit vehicles, transit signal priority at intersections along University Avenue, Conestoga Boulevard and Hespeler Road, and physical queue jump infrastructure on portions of Hespeler Road and at Shantz Hill and Fountain Street. Transit priority measures can play an important role in expanding efficient and equitable travel options. This study will consider and analyze how applying different transit priority measures may help to reduce transit travel times and increase predictability for transit trips by reducing delays and minimizing variability for buses, improve accessibility and safety for all road users, whether it's someone walking, biking, taking transit, or driving, encourage people to walk and bike along the corridor, whether it's to access transit or make a local trip, expand travel options to reduce the reliance on private automobiles and support development opportunities, including creating new opportunities for housing, improve access between neighborhoods and key destinations, including educational and employment opportunities along the corridor and across the wider region. We would like to know, will any of these benefits improve your trip or change the way you might use this corridor? There are several considerations and constraints that will play an important role in this work. These include culverts and bridges, which carry the street over waterways, over Highway 8 and the highway and the railways, driveways that serve commercial plazas that provide access to important destinations, the on and off ramps to Highway 8, which are under the jurisdiction of Ministry of Transportation of Ontario, and these areas can get busy during peak times, environmentally important areas, including the Laurel Creek Conservation Area and other natural areas, and several residential homes have their driveways onto the road, especially between Summit Ave, which is just south of Queens Boulevard, and Greenbrook Drive. In addition, there are two important future considerations: the growing community in the south near Huron Road and the future hospital planned near Barringer Road and Westmount Road on the University of Waterloo's North Campus. Both of these are areas that will need to be efficiently connected for travelers coming to and from these areas. Now, if there is a constraint or consideration that you think we've missed, please let us know when you complete your survey online. Transit data and traffic data was analyzed to identify hotspots to better understand how transit buses operate today. The hotspots represent locations, segments, or intersection movements that demonstrate delay for transit or traffic operation. Based on the analysis of the data, it was found that transit delays are greater during the evening or PM peak period compared to the morning or AM peak period. And in many cases, transit vehicles were stuck at red lights waiting to get through an intersection. Transit buses experienced the most delays between Highland Road and Ottawa Street. And transit and traffic face the greatest delays around Highway 8 ramps, where there are many vehicles traveling to, from, and across the highway. The full corridor is over 16 kilometers long and includes a variety of uses, including established neighborhoods, commercial plazas, natural and recreational areas, institutional uses, and new growing communities. The study team has broken the corridor down into 6 segments. The segments aim to break the larger corridor into smaller analysis areas with similar street and land use characteristics. Different transit priority measures may be considered more in-depth for different segments to meet the needs and constraints of these different areas. These segments are shown in the map on the right. Starting from the north end of the corridor, the first segment is between Westmount Road and Columbia Street. It travels beside the University of Waterloo's North Campus and the Laurel Creek Conservation Area. Construction is currently underway in this area, which will provide multi-use paths to fill in gaps in the walking and cycling network. This segment is near the future hospital campus. The second segment is between Columbia Street and Queens Boulevard. This segment passes through primarily residential areas where homes have their backs to the street, and there are commercial plazas at major intersections. The third segment is between Queens Boulevard and Greenbrook Drive. This segment passes by Forest Heights Collegiate Institute and residential communities. The unique feature of this segment is that houses between Summit Ave and Greenbrook Drive face the street and access their driveways directly from the corridor. The fourth segment is between Greenbrook Drive and Ottawa Street. This segment primarily passes over Highway 8 and includes the on and off ramps. Given the constrained bridge structure and the highway ramps, this is a particular focus area of the study. The fifth segment is between Ottawa Street and Bleams Road. This segment passes through residential areas, past retail plazas, and alongside a natural area. And the final segment is between Bleams Road and New Dundee Road, where there's ongoing construction. Most of the segment is rural, however, residential growth is currently occurring in the area. To understand how well the corridor supports travel today, a process called multimodal level of service was applied. The process assesses how well a street supports different ways to get around, including people walking, cycling, taking transit, driving in a private automobile, and those transporting goods. Segments in green generally serve those modes better, whereas segments in orange and red serve those modes worse. Based on the analysis, the corridor does not generally support people walking or cycling. This is generally because large portions of the corridor are missing sidewalks or cycling facilities, or the facilities no longer meet modern standards. Some work is already underway to make it better. The ongoing construction on Barringer Road between Westmount Road and Columbia Street will implement new multi-use paths that will make it easier and safer to walk and cycle in that area, similar to the new multi-use paths installed south of Bleams Road. The corridor somewhat supports transit riders. While most of the corridor is served by buses, there are segments that don't have transit at all, including north of Laurelwood Drive and south of Huron Street. Many bus stops don't have shelters or benches, although the I-Express stops along the corridor does. And as you can see, cars and trucks are generally well served today. This slide shows the steps that will be taken to evaluate the potential long-term solution. Currently, we are in the process of assessing the transportation needs and completing environmental condition studies in this area. The feedback and input we receive from you, the public, and stakeholders will help inform this work. We will then identify and evaluate alternative solutions for each of the road segment areas. And once those steps are complete, we'll screen the alternatives, develop alternative alignments, and select your preferred alternative. We invite you to complete the survey that is available on the Engage Waterloo Region site at engagewr.ca/FH study. This study is available until 11:59 p.m. on December 17th. You can also email your feedback directly to myself. Following the closure of the survey, we will review all comments and document all the feedback. We will then evaluate the alternative corridor options and select a technically preferred option. The evaluation results and preliminary design work will be presented to the public in 2025. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch with me using the contact information on the screen. I'd like to thank you for listening to the presentation about the project, and I'll pass it back to you, Pat.
Thank you, Natalie, for that detailed and informative presentation. A quick note for anyone who's newly joined, you can put your questions or comments in the Q&A tool, or you can raise your hand and we'll give you an opportunity to ask your question. Feedback will be collected through the survey on the Engage page, which is posted in the chat. So I do want to open it up for any questions that any of the attendees have. Last call for any questions out there. Final call for any questions. Oh, we've got a couple here. All right, so the first question here, oh, a couple are coming through. So the first question here, Natalie, I will throw this one to you. For the section north of Columbia, will the study mean that we are redoing this section that is already under construction?
Okay, thanks for that question, DJ. This study is looking forward for the next years of what will be happening along the corridor. And so there's currently no plan to reconstruct that area. But if it's come out in the study that there's future desire to change that, then that'll be noted for future projects.
Thanks, Natalie. Natalie, I'm going to come to you with the next question. Can you clarify, will there be any bus-only lanes?
That's exactly what this feasibility study is looking into, on whether that is the transit priority measures that best fit in order to serve all modes of travel currently and projected in the future in the region.
Thanks, Natalie. All right, continuing on. Question clarifying, are the lights staying on Fischer-Hallman or are more roundabouts going in?
Um, well, as part of this study, we'll be seeing what forms of physical measures we do need along the corridor. Um, and for lights, we know that lighting is very important, not only for road users of buses and vehicles, but also lighting is very important for active transportation users. And so that is something that the region considers in all projects to provide adequate lighting.
The next question here. Does the study only consider widening the road to add transit lanes, or are there considerations toward adding transit lanes without widening the road, which is already very wide? Natalie?
Uh, that's correct. To the question asker, David, we will be assessing whether converting a current vehicle mixed-use travel lane to a bus-only lane is a viable option instead of just widening the road to get a bus-only lane. So we'll be considering both options.
Thank you for that. Will Fischer-Hallman Road be widened between Columbia and Queen? Natalie.
This goes back to the same answer as above, where we'll be assessing if there's a need to widen or if converting a lane is needed, or if no change is needed and queue jump lanes or regulatory or signal priority measures are sufficient.
Perfect. Next question here. Is the section beyond Laurelwood going to be widened with the construction that is happening now?
No, there is currently no widening in that section. And there's also currently no buses running in that area. And so we'll have to see if there are plans to add buses in the future.
Next question. Would a diverting diamond interchange be considered at the Highway 8 bridge or changing the layout of the ramps?
We are definitely constrained by Ministry of Transportation of Ontario about what to do around the highway ramps. And so as much as we will be looking into physical measures to improve all forms of transportation in the area, a major constraint is that is Ministry of Transportation of Ontario infrastructure.
Thank you. Uh, Another question here. Uh, I recently completed a survey around the area, for the area around the highway. Is that the survey under consideration here?
No, this is a survey specifically for Fischer-Hallman Transit Priority Feasibility Study, which you can access at engagewr.ca/FH study.
Thanks, Natalie. Uh, Another question here. I'll field this one. If there are dedicated bus lanes, how do we ensure other drivers do not occupy it? Great question. That will be enforced through our bylaw offices and standard, um, Highway Traffic Act. Next question here. There are currently long stretches of this road that have few options to cross for pedestrians, only lights at lights or roundabouts. Will there be more mid-block crossings for pedestrians? Would there be any raised crossings?
Yeah, I really appreciate that question, Scott. And that's something that we do ask in our survey is if more crossings is something that's a priority to you. So it's definitely on the table as something we want to look at as part of this feasibility study. And if you'll complete the survey, please give some feedback on that, including specific areas that might be useful for you.
Okay. Last call then for any questions. Some really great questions so far.
Oh, I see a question from Leanne. That's correct. There's a typo on our current slide. It's engagewr.ca/FH study.
And then a question here, Natalie. Will the slides and recordings be posted on the Engage site?
Yes, we'll be posting the recording and the transcript on the Engage site.
Okay. Got a couple more here. Will the length of time for cars be taken into consideration if one lane becomes a bus lane? Natalie.
Yeah, that's correct. As part of the assessment for multimodal level of service, we'll be assessing what is the impact if we change lanes on all road users.
Route 201 intersects with many other routes, which it's often useful to transfer between. Will there be any thought to improving stops and pedestrian crossings to make transfers between bus routes easier? Natalie.
Certainly. As part of the feasibility study, we are trying to improve the level of service for transit along this corridor and the ability to transfer buses is important on that. And we are working with GRT alongside to really assess what's needed.
What criteria will be used to assess if new lanes are needed versus converting lanes of traffic?
Well, we have data on the current uses of the roads. And we also have data on the speeds and the trip lengths along the roads. And so we'll be assessing the level of impact using our models.
Thank you, Natalie. Really great questions out there. Thank you, everyone. Linda has asked a question. Do we have a date for the new hospital opening? We do not have a date for that, but we will consider all information when available as part of this study. Thanks, Linda. Do you know if or when more presentations will be made for this project? Natalie.
Thanks for asking. Certainly after we receive the feedback from this Public Consultation Centre and through the survey, we'll be taking that and working about different alternatives along the corridor. And we're looking to go back to the public in early 2025.
Natalie? Uh, A question here around the data to be used for the study. So, will the data used for the study be accessible to the public?
Um, that's a good question. Our data you can request through Freedom of Information. There we have multiple different data sources that we collect. Yeah.
I'll just add to that, Natalie, that yes, as we continue on through the process, we will have information provided. For example, the next round of public consultation, we'll have a bit more information on our analysis of the existing and future conditions, and the information that we're going to use to evaluate the different options for the corridor, and even by the different segments that were presented tonight. So there will be more information that we will provide as the study moves forward and as we start to dive a bit more into the details.
Thanks, Margaret.
Okay. We have one other question, and Margaret, I'll throw it to you for this one. What tools are you using to collect the data?
Oh, sure. So there is a variety of tools. Obviously, if we're counting cars, sometimes that's a human or a video system that we put out to measure the existing traffic flows. When it comes to transit operations data, we get that from GRT, who can provide the data from the buses, which are equipped with data collection devices, right on the bus. If it is in terms of environmental conditions, then we'll have people out on site who are biologists who, can tell tree species and different biological features when they're looking at them. So there's quite a combination of data that we'll be collecting, as well as information, as Natalie mentioned, that's already available, that the region maintains a data set already. So we're relying on many different sources that we're going to pull together and then look at sort of a multiple account evaluation, looking at a bunch of different features and factors, and again, recognizing that the corridor varies quite a bit from north to south. So we're going to pull all that data together and then use a multiple accounts evaluation to evaluate different options.
Thanks, Margaret. Another question here. Could something like an update to Bill 212 to include bus lanes change direction with this?
Right. Bill 212 currently doesn't include bus lanes. It's just for if a vehicle lane is converted into a bike lane. So it doesn't currently impact the things we're looking into in this project. And if something does come down, then we will take that into consideration as we complete the feasibility study.
If I may add to that as well, Natalie, this is something that does change in our industry over time. So, for example, in the late around 2008, there was a change in legislation and processes around transit projects, which has affected things like light rail transit, bus rapid transit, and subways. So we're quite used to this in our industry where things may change from time to time. We will react to those things when they happen, but until such time, we'll continue business as usual and following the current processes in place for a project of this type.
Margaret. Another question. If we take lanes away for dedicated bus lanes, do we consider widening the roads parallel to Fischer-Hallman to divert traffic? Natalie.
We are seeing what the traffic impacts would be to the broader network if we were to make changes along Fischer-Hallman as part of this project. But widening roads other than Fischer-Hallman is not part of this feasibility study.
Okay. So looks like there are no further questions. So on behalf of our team, I want to thank you to everyone who took the time to join us tonight. Please remember to fill out our survey using the link in the chat. We will continue to collect feedback until December 17th. Thank you. Have a great evening.